Thank you for joining me for part 3 of Great Walks of Japan, Kochi and Ehime. In part 3, we visit the washi, or Japanese paper-making town of Ino, or Ino-cho, and we then explore 5 of the best sections along the Dappan-no-michi, Sakamoto Ryoma's escape route from his hometown of Kochi to Ehime, and then on to the main island of Honshu. Our third and final town visit is to Ino-cho, just 27 minutes by train out of Kochi. Ino-cho sits on the Nyodo River and is famous for papermaking. Now, just while we're on this map, allow me to highlight 2 interesting visits close to Kochi City. First, the Kochi Prefectural Makino Botanical Gardens. I mentioned Makino was the father of botany in Japan and discovered the torafu dake bamboo in part 2. The building in the garden is by the well-regarded architect Hiroshi Naito. And second, the wonderful Kochi Museum of Prefectural History, located on the top of a hill, which was the site of Oko Castle of the Choso Kabe clan. Now, briefly, this clan united all of Shikoku at the end of the 16th century. However, they chose the losing side at the Battle of Sekigahara and were usurped by the Yamauchi in 1600. The images of the Izanagi-ryu Shinto cutouts, which I used in part 2, were used with permission from this museum. Ino-cho town is nestled alongside the Nyodo River. Its population is just over 20,000 and declining about 1% per annum. A visit to the Ino Town Paper Museum is highly recommended, which is located just here. My thanks to the museum for the use of their images and video here. Now, just to remind you, if you download my notes at bit.ly Kochi and Ehime, or use this QR code, you can receive a full English translation, my English translation of all the Japanese language interps at the museum. So if you're visiting the museum, there's very little English. Please do that. And I've included the history of papermaking in the world, which is in one entire room in the museum, and also the washi production process. I will play a 12-minute video at the end of this presentation provided by the museum about the washi making process. Outside the museum is a poem monument. The calligraphy is by the governor of Kochi of the time, and the poem is by Prince, at the time, Akihito, which he read when he visited in 1964. Akihito became the Heisei emperor and is the emperor emeritus today. In the poem, he reflects on the great quantity of washi he saw on his visit and how it had been made. The raw materials for paper making are farmed in Kochi today. The 2 main materials are kozo, a hybrid mulberry tree, and mitsumata, an edgeworthia. You might notice the edgeworthia growing wild on our walks. In fact, it's not farmed very well. Mitsumata grows better in the wild. Mitsumata means 3 branches, and indeed you'll notice that the edgeworthia is all 3-branched. Kochi remains a key paper-making area, with the skills to make paper protected by the prefecture and the farming of the raw materials still popular. The finished product, paper, is about 4% of the raw wood used in the process. The inner bark, as you see, step 3, is about 9% of the original raw material. The museum describes the 10 steps of papermaking, which we'll see in a moment in the video. They start with collecting the raw material, boiling the raw material to get the inner bark, washing the inner bark in cold running water. This is why the Nyodo River, the clear waters of the Nyodo River, are so important. Chiritori, which is picking out of impurities, and this is done out of the river and then again back in the water for the highest quality washi paper. And then tataku, or beating, which aligns the fibers. Koburi, which is another finer sorting of the fibers back in the river. And then kamisku, which you can experience yourself at the museum. This is scooping up of a layer of raw fiber, which has been mixed with glue onto a screen. Then pressing, drying, which was done in the sun. Now it's done on a heated drum, and then cutting and packaging is the final process. Now, allow me to play this video. Step 1 is collecting the raw materials.
楮の他にも三つ股や岩皮といった原料もあります。
So the three main raw materials are kozo, hybrid mulberry, mitsumata, the Edgeworthia, and gampi. This is step 2, boiling for 3 hours.
皮を柔らかくし、剥ぎやすくするためです。
This softens the bark, and the bark must be stripped off while the wood is still hot. The lady said that the branches are still warm, but I can assure you they are still very hot. This is the outer and the inner bark, and then the inner bark, the white bark, has to be stripped off. It's soaked in water overnight. And this is soda ash, which is mixed in, and unfortunately this is a polluting process. It's boiled for about 4 hours while the raw material is turned over in the soda ash. And then we are going to start step 3, which is washing in cold running water. This is the Nyodo River. They prepare a place in the riverbed to wash the raw material. So the soda ash is washed out. And then it's dried in the sun.
これで水洗い、さらしの作業は終わりです。
This is the completion of step 3.
きれいに洗われ、さらされた原料ですが、まだまだ塵やゴミがついています。
This is the beginning of step 4,
ちりとりというわけです。
chiritori, the picking out of impurities.
これは原料を水につけて塵を取る水よりです。
This process is being conducted in the water, and just to remind you, this is freezing cold water.
これは原料を水につけずに塵を取る空よりです。
But there is also a chiritori process where
特に繊細で極
the
薄の
impurities are
天狗
picked
上司の場合は
out of the
両方行
water.
いますが、一般的にはどちらか一度しか行いません。
Now, you use both processes when you are making the highest grade material. Now, this is the beating. I showed you the sticks that would beat the raw material before, but of course this is mechanized today. This is to align the fibers.
昔はこの打開棒でこのよう
This
に
is how they used to do it
人
in
の手を叩いていたようです。
past years.
だいぶ溶けてきたようです。さあ、最後の仕上げです。
Back
洗
to
わ
the
れ
river.
叩かれて繊維となった原料は小ぶりによってさらに細かく叩かれ
And
ます。
this is step 6, koburi, or the finer alignment of fibers.
これが小ぶりという作業です。小ぶりを行うのは天狗上司などごく一部の紙だけです。
Again, this step is only undertaken for the highest quality paper
現在ではこ
that
のように
might
機
be
械がやっております。
donated to shrines, for example.
打開が終わったもの、小ぶりの終わったもの、これらは資料と呼ばれます。
So at this stage, the raw material is called shirio, literally the raw
資
material
料と
for
練りを
paper.
すき舟に入れてこのようによく混ぜます。これを船作りと言います。
This is step 7.
これが練りを作るクロロアオイ。
This is a glue that's mixed with the raw material. And this is the kamisku process.
いよいよ紙すきです。
A very thin layer is evenly laid out on the screen.
この板が水詰め。疲れたばかりの紙の山がシト。
The museum is a working paper factory, and so you can see this process being undertaken at the museum, as well as try it yourself.
あ とは乾かすばかりです。乾燥の第一歩は圧縮です。
The next step is step 8, pressing.
このようにしてまず水を絞り出します。
All of the water is pressed out of the paper.
小半日ほど置いて一旦外してシトを半分に切ります。
It's cut into a more manageable size before drying.
そしてもう一度圧縮します。やはりゆっくり絞ります。圧縮されたシトは乾燥場に運ばれます。
And each
適度な
page
水分を持たせます。
has to be pressed. To peel off each sheet, a little bit of water is added.
刷毛は馬のたてがみでできています。
The brush is made from horsehair, horse mane. And in the old days, the paper was dried in the sun. These days, they use this heated metal surface. And then the final step is to cut the paper
乾
into
燥が終わ
set
った紙は
sizes.
決められたサイズに断裁されます。包丁はすぐに切れなくなりますので、砥石はいつも手元に。
The knife blunts very quickly, so it has to be sharpened constantly. So I think you might appreciate how difficult it is to make washi, and it's a beautiful paper, and hopefully that's given you an appreciation of the steps to make it. Now, my recommended accommodation at Ino Town is the Kamenoi Hotel, which sits above the Niodo River, and it has fine outdoor hot springs that overlook the river and the town as well. Our third and final walk is Sakamoto Ryoma's Dappan-no-michi. Ryoma was an imperial loyalist samurai of the Bakumatsu era. These samurai were known as shishi, who were idealists and patriots willing to sacrifice themselves for what they considered the good of the nation. He was born on 3 January 1836. There are a number of major museums dedicated to him in Kochi city. One of those is located near his birthplace in front of Kochi Castle. Much of what we know about Ryoma is contained in letters he wrote to colleagues and his sisters, and some of his letters are displayed in these museums. One quote describes his character well. This was from a letter that he wrote to his sister. Even today, Kochi people call themselves igosso, which means a strong will to stick to one's beliefs without giving into obstacles. And Ryoma is quoted as saying, say what you want about me, but only I know myself. So a true Kochi-like samurai. On our walk, we explore 5 of the best sections of the Dappan-no-michi. The first section is easily reached by train from Kochi, and then the following 4 sections require vehicle access. The easily accessible Section 1 is the very pleasant walk from Sakawa Station to Kusaka Station, which is just near Ino-cho. We then walk over two major passes, the Kuchiki Pass at 536 meters in Section 2 and the Kujuku Magari Pass in Section 5, which is the border with Ehime Prefecture. This pass is 957 meters. Walk 1 is a very pleasant 16.5 k's on pavement from Sakawa to Kusaka train stations on routes 53 and 291. Sakawa is a small town with an excellent geological museum and park up on the hill dedicated to the father of Japanese botany, Makino Tomitaro. Country lanes lead us up through terraced rice fields. The trail is part of the Shikoku Nature Trail and is well signposted in Japanese. Small villages spot the trail, and there are fine views from the pass. Signposts on the right there indicate that it is Ryoma's escape trail, and before long we are down off the pass into farming villages again. And before long, you are back at Kusaka railway station and can easily return to Kochi city. Walk 2 is close to Sakawa. It's just 8 kilometers walking, but it's on road and it's not very pleasant, so it's better to get to the trailhead by car. Our walk today is just 6.7 kilometers with 235 meters of ascent and 541 meters of descent. The trailhead is just past Ryoma Shrine on the Dappan-no-michi. The initial section is along a mini 88 temples pilgrimage route. In this case, the deities are simple petroglyphs, carvings on stones, rather than the complex carvings of deities that we saw in part 2. The trail continues gently upwards to the Kuchiki Pass, where a checkpoint or barrier station was located in the Edo period. The views off the pass are fine, and as we descend, we soon meet villagers responsible for the maintenance of the trail. Mr. Kawamura Michio is the assistant chairman of the We Love Ryoma committee, which maintains the trail. He's a delightful gentleman and owns all of these terraced rice fields, and he was just filling them with water as I walked past a couple of weeks ago. Fairly soon, we're captured by the chairman of the We Love Ryoma committee. He's standing up the back there on the left, Mr. Ishimura Seiro, who sings enka folk songs and plays the guitar, sax and piano. We have a great time, and eventually he allows us to escape or dappan to his museum shed where we can have a picnic lunch, or you might prefer a bench in his carport overlooking the valley on a fine day. The walk continues to descend to Ino Town on the main highway. Walk 3 is a short walk along the Dappan-no-michi, but a longer exploration up to the source of the Shimanto River. Now, an ancient inn was built right up at the source of the Shimanto, but it's recently been moved down to sit on the Dappan-no-michi. It's a modern new facility, still called Hotel Yuzan Shimanto Seiran no Sato. There are just 6 modern rooms with Western beds on tatami matting. Excellent food for dinner, and breakfast is served as well. The walk along the Dappan-no-michi is interesting, but it's also possible to walk up the valley behind the hotel towards the source of the Shimanto River, which is a moss paradise full of small streams and eventually a spot which we are told on our maps is the formal head of the mighty Shimanto River. Walk 4 was our 8-kilometre walk through Yusuhara Township, described in part 1 of this series. And walk 5 is over the border into Ehime Prefecture, crossing the Kuju-ku Magari Pass at 957 metres. The trailhead is about 10 minutes by car from Yusuhara at the old Miyano-no barrier station. The barrier station was passed by Ryoma in myth with great confidence. In reality, he probably secreted past it at night. The checkpoint stood on the road between Tosa and Iyo, or Ehime Prefecture, on a major road that connected through to Yamaguchi, Kyushu, and Kyoto. The trailhead is just around the corner over the river and involves a gentle ascent for an hour or so up to a wetland at the pass. Passing over the pass, the fun begins as the so-called Kuju-ku Magari, or literally 99 switchbacks, begins. And one of my walkers actually did count exactly 99 switchbacks. Generally 99 in Japanese means many. We reach pleasant rural villages and conclude our walk at the old Kawasaki Ten, a small store run by the wonderful 84-year-old Kawasaki-san, who will sell you an ice cream and snacks after the walk and delights in a chat with us. This completes our walk for the day, and we take transport on to Ozu. Ryoma walked a further 33 kilometers to Shukuma village in the bottom right-hand side there, where he caught a boat down the Hijikawa River, past Ozu and on to the port of Nagahama. Ryoma arrived at Shukuma on the lunar calendar 27 March 1862, or the Gregorian 24th of March 1862. This is where he boarded his river boat. And happy trails to you, and thank you for listening.